welcome to the MilCents Hangout. I'm Shannon Rasden, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a great hangout planned for you this evening, and I am joined tonight by 4 wonderful individuals. We're joined this week by 2 subject matter experts. We have Pete from FINRA Foundation, and we have Rhonda from National Foundation for Credit Counseling. And we're also joined by 2 military spouses who are here to share their personal stories overcoming debt. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a minute, but thank you so much, Jillian and Mickey, for joining us. Jillian is up in Rhode Island, and Mickey is all the way over in Korea. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. The theme of this week is getting control of your debt. So far, we've asked you to take a look at how much debt you have and use NFCC's debt calculator to calculate how long it will take you to pay off your debt. We want you to know that regardless of what the situation might be, you're doing a great job by getting yourself in a position where you're learning enough to take the first step to take control. So congratulations on that. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the military spouses who are here with us this evening. And again, ladies, thank you so much for sharing your personal stories. I really think that it will help our MilCents participants, understand that this is in their control and that they can get their finances in gear regardless of what the situation might be. So Jillian, we'll start with you. So if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your experience overcoming debt.
Sure. Thank you, Shannon. And I love your approach to the hopefulness of getting out of debt, because it is possible. It certainly is. So good evening, and as Shannon said, I am in the great state of Rhode Island. I am also a Navy spouse and a 2015 Military Spouse Fellow with the FINRA Foundation, working on earning my Accredited Financial Counselor, or AFC, designation. In my spare time, I'm also a volunteer caseworker with the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. So my financial story is a tale as old as time. Growing up, the financial advice I received typically was do the opposite of what I did, learn from my mistakes, and save. My mother worked very hard. There were 4 of us, and she was a single mother, and she worked really hard. And we didn't have a lot of money, though, and I didn't really know how to manage that. So when I got my first job, I have a paycheck, I have money. I'm going to spend every dime I earn. There's plenty of time to save. I'm so young. The future's so far away. But it wasn't. Then I took a job in retail, which was a great learning experience. I always think everybody should work in retail at some point in their life to learn how to interact with customers. But it put me in constant contact with stuff, right? Stuff I could buy but didn't need, stuff that I just had to have. My values were my priorities were a little off at that time. So how do I pay for this stuff? Well, here comes a credit card offer. Oh, fantastic, sign me up. Before I knew it, I had over 10 credit cards, and they were maxed out. And in a moment of reflection, I realized that I was still paying for holiday gifts from 3 years prior. When I was talking to Shannon before, I mentioned how I had purchased a Game Boy Advance, and if all of you gamers know what that is, it's like a $50 console. I was still paying for it 3 years later, right? So that's a lot of interest to pay for such a small item. And in fact, I think the Game Boy was actually broke after that too, so real loss there. That revelation was terrifying. That I had so much debt. I was paying for things that had come and gone, had outlived their usefulness, and I knew I needed to make major changes. My values and my priorities at the time were evolving, and my finances needed to kind of catch up to that, and they needed to evolve as well. I was no longer really interested in just accumulating things. I really wanted to have experiences and start to build an enriched life. So I reached out to a friend who had strong financial management skills for advice, and we worked up a plan. And that took a lot of courage, I think, for me, because I'm full of pride, and I think it's hard when we're talking about money to be vulnerable with other people. And I had to put aside my concerns about feeling, would they judge me? Would they ridicule me? What would be their reaction? They were very supportive. I think that's probably why I knew they would end up being that way, which is why I reached out to them. And like I said, we worked up a plan. I took advantage of a 0% balance transfer offer on a few cards and moved balances from my cards to a few new ones. And I'm sure our subject matter experts here will know sometimes just moving your debt around doesn't necessarily address the problem. It's more of a Band-Aid for the situation. And it was. I stumbled, and I started to rack up balances on my cards again, as one might predict. I used a temporary solution without really addressing the behavioral changes that needed to happen with my spending. And, self-reflection, like I was saying, is such a powerful thing. When I was thinking about where I was and just really being honest with myself and saying, is this where I want to be in 5 months or even 5 years? Do I still want to be saddled with this debt? Do I want to avoid the mail? Do I want to avoid phone calls? Do I want to continue to live that life? And I didn't. I came to that realization. I came to that decision, and I was committed to making a sustainable, and that's key, right? A sustainable, gradual change. So armed with this commitment, this newfound commitment, I humbly walked into my local credit union and I applied for a loan to pay off the staggering debt, which I know can be subjective. Staggering to me might be very different for someone else, but to me it was staggering. And I explained my situation, and again, in that position of vulnerability, talking to the loan representative about how I found myself in the situation, what my plan was to move forward, and really just demonstrating my commitment to it. And I was approved for the loan, which I'm so grateful for, and I cleared all the cards. I began tracking my spending. I mean, down to the penny, and that behavior still exists today. I began monitoring my credit so closely. I closed all but one of my cards, which I know the experts typically advise against for credit score, longevity purposes, but for my personal situation at the time, I didn't need that temptation, and I couldn't quite frankly handle that temptation. I'm the same way with Nutella hazelnut spread. I don't invite that temptress into my house either, and I could not take the cards on. So it took years of hard work and discipline, and that's really key, discipline. But I finally emerged debt-free. I involved my family in it. I let them know what I was going through. I even talked to some of my close friends who have a little bit of a spending habit themselves, and we would kind of go out and have fun, and just to let them know where I'm coming from and why I might not be able to participate in a lot of the activities that we did because I'm working on this longer vision, this bigger plan to get out of debt. So I emerged debt-free, my credit score began to recover, and I really started to appreciate how the debt affected all aspects of my life, from my mental health to my relationships to my feeling of self-worth to my car insurance premiums, right? Things you normally don't think about, how your score can affect different aspects of your life, and it really touches all of it. And I was also, in talking with people through this journey, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that just because you have a higher income doesn't make you immune to the same situation that someone who's earning less. And I know that's something that Shannon and I had talked about before too. So it was really important for me to take away learning that the future is going to be the present. Saving should be at the top of my list, and that living within my means really didn't mean depriving myself of a meaningful and meaningful and enriching life. Having a budget helps me avoid asking, where did my money go? I'm able to tell it where I want it to go. So I am a reformed cardaholic. That's what I say. I do have a couple cards now. I'm able to handle it. But the difference with having them now is I make them work for me. So I take part in cashback cards, anything that can help improve my score, anything that gives me rewards, but nothing that maybe has an annual fee. I'm not a fan of annual fee credit cards for many reasons, but I like to have cards that, again, are working for me. So, and it was so easy for me to get caught in the credit card trap. And let me know if I'm rambling on. If you, as part of the week 6, if you watch the NFCC client testimonials, you recall one of the videos said just how easy it was to get a card. And then once you start in that situation, it's so hard to get out. Max out a card, get another one, no problem. And for me, it became this cycle of spend, max, apply, spend, max, apply. And it took a long time. It took a lot of hard work and discipline. And like I said, being vulnerable and talking to people about my situation. But I finally emerged debt-free. I don't ever want to go back to that place. And being in that space is what propelled me to get involved with the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, apply to the FINRA Foundation for the Military Spouse Fellow, to work on getting my AFC credentials so that I can help others either prevent them from finding themselves in that situation or figure out how to get out of that situation. So that is my journey, and I hope I didn't take too much time.
Thank you so much, Jillian. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It really goes to show that regardless of what the situation might be, you can get yourself in check and figure out a way to get out of any type of situation. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Vicki, now if you could share a little bit about your story, and good morning to you over in South Korea.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Mickey Vinicam, and I am currently stationed in Korea with my husband and my 2 kids. And I am a 2010 FINRA Foundation Fellow and graduated in 2011. And I have been accredited financial counselor since 2011 and have been working on and off as the AMFLAC personal financial counselor on an installation. Before I come to Korea, I was in Fort Riley for almost a year to helping soldiers and family. And right now, since we moved to Korea, I am an on-call financial counselor for Military One Source, as well as if any installation need financial counselor, I will be there as well. So, like I said, I have 2 children, 2 toddlers. So it's a fun place to be in Korea. So here's my story that hopefully that I will be able to inspire all my fellow military family as well as service member. I am from another country before I came here in the U.S. What I did is I do not know anything about credit when I first came here, and the very first time that I know about credit, it's when I first go down to the dealership to purchase my vehicle, and the salesman look at me and say, hey, do you have any credit? And I look at them and I say, what do you mean credit? And the thing is like, you don't have any credit? And I said, I just moved here, and you guys don't like cash. And that's something that I kind of learned from being I always call myself an outsider because I'm not born and raised in the States, so I see things differently when it comes to money from time to time. So that's when I learned about credit, and next thing you know, graduate from high school here in the state, going to college, people line up to giving you credit card and say, hey, spend it, and don't teach you how to use it the right way. So same thing like Julian, got that piece of plastic and they said, go for it, and I go for it, and next thing you know, paying for 2 years, and why it's not paying it off. It's been paying for 2 years. Like I said, they never teach you how to use it. They just tell you to spend it. So we love our stuff, and my husband and I, it's just like typical couples that we got to have something. We deserve it. That's what everybody always said. We deserve. We work hard for our stuff. So we, buy 2 houses, got all the toys that we wanted, and we have no kids. We have 2 income, and we have savings, but not as much as we wanted to. So we thought we're living in the dreams. We got our little savings here and there, so there's no worries. And we are blessed that in 2010, that before I become an intern as a financial counselor, we were at a church that kind of facilitated a class that we were invited to go, and that kind of gave me a wake-up call because I'm always passionate about financial education to begin with. That's why I become a fellow and become a financial counselor, and that class actually it's an eye-opener for me, for myself, as well as for my husband, because we do have savings, but I think that most of us, it's all focusing on when we're hearing about the word budget, nobody likes the B word. Nobody does. And the thing is, when we are sitting down doing a budget as a family, we always say, oh, in the old ways when we do it, we will just we can take on another payment. That is not a problem. It's in our budget. We have extra money. And that's not the right way to do a budget, because once you always see that, I can afford another thing, and that's your mentality, go from there, that you will be able to find ways. If I pay off my car, oh, I can afford something else because there is another extra $300 that I will be able to spend on something else. So after that class, we went through that class, and we do have some savings. And what we did is it's the hardest thing for us to do, which as a counselor myself, I always have that question from my client, is that should I, use up my saving to pay off debt, or how I do it. So to me is, if you have some savings, I'm not telling people to clear out their account, but the thing is, if you will be able to use some of your saving to pay off the debt, think about it, how much your bank account is paying you. If let's say you have a couple thousand in your account, they probably pay you 2 pennies a month. And if you are paying your credit card that you have a couple thousand on the balance, how much do you pay every month for finance charges? I encourage you to pull out your bank statement, looking at what the interest that they pay, and pull out your credit card statement and look at what the finance charges is, and that's when kind of give you the encouragement, it's okay to, use some of your saving to, pay off your debt, and utilize that saving, because that I understand that people always want the security. I am the same way. Trust me. I did that myself, so I completely understand how how scary it is that some of the money is completely gone. But the thing is, once that debt is gone, when your paycheck coming in, that car payment that you don't have to pay, it go right back to your saving, and that is something that people don't realize. And what we did is we paid off our vehicle, we pay off our HELOC, the home line of credit for our rental home. So it's a transformation for us, for the blessing that the church has given us, and we did that, and we were pretty much out of debt, but the mortgage within, I would say, 3 months. And then like I said, we love our stuff, so we bought a home that we don't need. So what happened is we take the consequence that be a long distance landlord, and finally get a chance to sell the home. So in the beginning of 2010, we're about close to $400,000 in debt, and now we are debt-free, and we have a very small mortgage for our investment property right now. So I just want to encourage you, 5 years ago, we are totally in debt, and now hopefully that's what our goal is we will be able to stay on track and focus, and hopefully before we come back to the state after our assignment from Korea, we will be completely debt-free, even though with the mortgage. One thing that I always tell my fellow spouses as well as service member, that it's really not how much you make, it's about how much you save. So Jillian said the same thing, it's all about saving. So one thing that if any of you that's watching this that is one of my client at Riley, or if you ever get counsel from me or just talk with me, what I said about budget. Saving is a #1 thing before you pay any bills, including mortgage. That's just me, because people do not put savings as a priority, and that's when the troubles comes. So I'm not asking for that 10%. Usual financial experts always say you need to put 10%. I understand people need to, sometimes need to do whatever they need to do to survive. So if you can, just start that habit, only $5 add up. So saving is one thing that people need to make as a priority. And with our stories, with us have 2 income, no kids beforehand, it's totally in debt. With now that I'm not working, I'm just on call when they need me. So we are pretty much on 1 income, and we're almost debt free. So it can be done, and it's all about discipline.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mickey. Really, really appreciate
Sure.
that. Now we're going to toss it over to our experts who are going to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the services that they provide for military families and the services that are available to everyone who participates in MilCents. So, Rhonda, we'll start with you. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sounds good. Thank you, Shannon. My name is Rhonda Ashburn. I am the Senior Director of Financial Education Programs for the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. We're a nonprofit organization focused on helping people with financial education efforts and financial counseling across the country. There are close to 600 offices with 1,600 certified counselors in accredited agencies. My role there is to lead an effort called Sharpen Your Financial Focus. We receive generous funding from several of the financial institutions. In fact, Wells Fargo is supporting a military component of this specific effort. You can actually learn more at nfccdebrelief.org/military if you'd like to connect with a member agency that's helping the military families and spouses and even veterans across the world. But we've been involved with military efforts, so the NFCC serves on the DoD Financial Readiness Roundtable. For many years, we've been the face-to-face financial counseling provider for Military OneSource. We also have a partnership with Coast Guard Mutual Assistance, so through our member agencies, we're providing financial education and workshops that the Coast Guard Mutual Assistance folks help connect us to their members. We serve on the Veterans Financial Coalition with Visa Practical Money Skills, and then our Sharpen Your Financial Focus military effort. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We feel like that we don't want our military service members and their families to have that stress that you just heard from our great spokespersons earlier. It can be very hard, and we want to help them so that they don't have to have that worry. And so that's why we do it. We do it because we think it's the right thing to do. So I'll turn it back to you, Shannon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And there definitely is not a one-size-fits-all solution for everyone, so it's great that NFCC is available to really help families find the right solution for them. So thank you for all that you do. And now we're going to toss it over to Pete with FINRA Foundation. Pete, can you introduce yourself for us and talk to us about what you do for military families?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks to the Military Spouse Fellows that you just heard from. FINRA is the financial regulator for all securities firms and registered individuals that do business with the public. That's our regulatory hat. We have an investor protection hat that I'm part of as the Director of Investor Education at FINRA. We also have a FINRA Investor Education Foundation that's committed to helping Americans, particularly those that are underserved by traditional educational initiatives, save and invest with confidence. That includes members of the military. We've had a military investor education campaign since 2006. It has a couple of major pillars. One is our Military Spouse Fellowship that both of the spouses have just talked about, and I'm just so proud of what they've done, what they've given back, because a key component of that spouse fellowship is earning practicum hours in your community, on base, helping those who need help, and in the process getting your feet wet with financial issues en route to earning the accredited financial counselor designation. So that's one element of it. Another big piece is just giving sound advice and counsel about saving and investing to members of the military and their families, understanding that they have a different life and different stressors, as well as just simply a different way of life than the majority of Americans in this country. And it takes a different way of explaining and presenting investment information to them. A third pillar of our program is evolving debt, and in particular a relationship we have with MyFICO to provide free credit scores and learning along the way to build your credit scores. So during the past 2 years alone, we have given out about 70,000 credit scores to members of the military and their families, and have been able to see many individuals through personal testimony tell us that those, just knowing what their score is, not having to worry about paying for it, being able to understand the different components of it, have really given them the ability to take charge of their finances.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to go right into the questions that we received from the MilCents participants. So the first question, I'm going to ask everyone to give us an answer, but what's the #1 piece of advice that you have for military families who are looking to get their debt under control? And Jillian, would you mind kicking us off with your #1 piece of advice?
Sure. Well, participating in this program is a great start. So I was thinking about this when we talked earlier, and I had so many things that I wrote down, but just, being committed, right? Really understanding what your goals and objectives are, getting them down, opening your mail, right? That's so important. Not avoiding the mail, and creating a budget that's realistic. Those are just a couple kind of key points. I'm sure the other panelists will have some others as well.
Great, and thank you. Mickey, what about you?
For me, like I mentioned it, savings, make it as a priority. If you don't have that, even a little bit of it, you're gonna accumulate debt, and you will not be able to fall back on, because emergency fund, it's a savings. It's not the credit card. That is the emergency credit card. So that is something that is very important, and planning, budget.
Awesome, thank you. And Rhonda, what's your piece of advice for our viewers?
Well, I'm partial, working with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. I think our member agencies have so much to offer that I would encourage folks to reach out, because even if you don't have problems, you can certainly learn more and be focused on preventing problems and challenges on down the road. So I would say take action. So many times people don't they just sit on the couch, and if they do have a problem, they just don't address it. It's almost like they're fearful of addressing that. So you've got to be willing to kind of stick your neck out, take a risk, maybe show your vulnerabilities, and it'll be worth it in the end.
Awesome, thank you. And Pete, what about you?
Don't go it alone. Debt is something that may be very personal, but at the same time, it is something that benefits from community support, whether that's if you're on base working with a personal financial manager, working with the spouse fellows or others that have knowledge of this, working with others that may have had those same problems, because you're not the first person to experience debt, and you won't be the last. We know from research that the Finner Foundation did through a National Financial Capability Study that not only are you not alone, there are millions of people like you across the country. 19% of Americans carry debt, and have said that it impacts their state of mind and their ability to save and do good things with their money. So reach out, don't be ashamed to do that, and do it sooner rather than later.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And our next question came via push-up, so via the MilCents social platform. And Rhonda, I'm going to toss this one over to you first. The question was, what can I do if I can't afford to pay off my credit cards and can't get a consolidation loan?
Okay, well, I think the first thing I would say is don't feel like you're alone, because as Pete was mentioning, there's lots of research out there. We annually have a financial literacy survey that we released during Financial Literacy Month in April, and it showed this past year, in April this year actually, that 3 out of every 4 households have some type of credit card debt from month to month. So you're not alone. I would recommend that you go to an NFCC member agency. there's a tool called a debt management plan that is available. First, you would want to meet with a certified counselor, have a financial review, and as a result of our Sharpen Your Financial Focus effort, that's available to you for free. And you can consolidate your bills, get lower interest rates in most cases. Everything depends on your own situation, but of course you want to improve your money habits. You can stop the collector calls, hopefully by meeting with that certified counselor, and there'll just be lots of positive outcomes that come out of it and eventually get you out of debt. And as Nikki and Jillian have said, I mean, it's like freedom in a way. You just feel so relieved to not have that stress. And I think going to a trusted place is very important, because there are bad actors out there, and you don't want to just go to some place that's, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So be cautious. Go to a place that you know you can trust, that's going to help you with your situation, and just, again, look for the light at the end of the tunnel. It's step by step, day by day.
Awesome, thank you. And Pete, do you have anything else to add, or did Rhonda cover it?
Oh, I think those are the best points you can make. Nothing to add on that.
Perfect. And then our last question was from Ellie, also via push-up. Is there such thing as good debt? And Pete, I'm going to toss that one over to you to get us started.
Yes, the short answer is there is such thing as good debt, and both Jillian and Mickey talked about the ability to get a credit card, and if you get that credit card, use it responsibly and be able to establish a positive track record of paying off that card, you'll have a better credit score. As most of the people who are listening, you know that your credit score is something that you establish as soon as you start using credit, and it stays with you as long as you live. It really is one of those things that is going to make the difference between a lot of lower priced loans or higher priced loans. So it is a way to get yourself on the right path to saving and paying an amount for housing, for other what I would consider wealth builders, such as equity in a home, that are part of the foundation of successful financial management.
Awesome, thank you. And Rhonda, do you have anything else to add on this one?
No, I think that Pete did a nice job.
Okay, great. And MilCents participants learned all about credit last week, so this is definitely a really, I should say a few weeks ago, so this is a really great follow-up. Those are all the questions that we have from our audience, so I want to give everyone a chance to share a few last words or last thoughts. Jillian, can we start off with you?
Yes, of course. I just want to make 2 quick points, if you don't mind. When we talked about the one piece of advice, one other thing I want to mention is something that I shared in my stories. Don't be discouraged by stumbling blocks. Don't be discouraged if you take a step back. It's okay. Just take a breath, recollect, reassess, and just continue to move forward. Just, Shannon talked about that hope when we started. Just continue to move forward and stay focused. And don't be too hard on yourself if you fall backwards, because I did myself, and I can speak from that experience, and I know what that feels like. But just give yourself a little bit of slack, because you are working towards something, so give yourself a little bit of room. And then also, when you were talking about good debt, one other thing for me that comes to mind when you talk about good debt are student loans. They're not necessarily bad if they can help you earn a higher paying job that you normally wouldn't get without a college degree, and provided that you earn enough to make your payments back, that I think also can be considered good debt. And I'd be curious if anybody had any opinion on that as well. So those were just 2 points that I wanted to make, and I really commend everybody who's listening to this webcast for participating in the program, for taking that step and working towards building on your financial literacy and building a better future for yourself and your family. As Rhonda was talking about, military life has enough stressors as it is, and having having your finances under control can really help service member focus on the mission, know that things are okay at home, and it just really, it has an overall positive benefit for the entire family unit. So that's
awesome.
just
Thank you so much. Mickey, what about you? Any last thoughts?
For me, I probably will encourage our family as well as service member, don't wait until you cannot handle something. If you don't have problem, that's something that I always say to my soldiers when I was at Fort Riley. When I come up to them, they said their finances is good because they know I'm the financial advisor with their brigade. So they say, I'm fine, ma'am. And the thing is, like, you're fine. You're a fine soldier. You don't want to be a fine soldier. You want to be great. So that is something that I always encourage my spouses as well as service member. Always utilize your resources. Never hurt you to ask any question. People there for a reason. So it's used for your disposal. Doesn't cost you a dime. So ask anything. If you don't like that answer, go to another advisor or another financial counselor or one of the fellow like us, and Jillian and I, because there is over 600 military fellows out there that will be able to help you, because we are military spouses. We want to give back, and that's one way that we'll be able to give it back, by share our experience as well as our knowledge. So ask questions. Ask as many as you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Rhonda, what about you?
I think I would say knowledge is power, so don't hesitate to take action and continue to learn. I mean, even if you've been, doing a lot of financial education, you can still learn every day. It's just being cognizant of that, and simple things like knowing the difference between needs and wants. We actually have a lot of resources on our website at nfcc.org if you want to check some of those out, and I know they've been incorporated into the program. But you can do a lot on your own, and then don't be afraid to ask for help if you truly need it, because there are trusted resource people you can go to help you.
Perfect. And last but certainly not least, Pete, what about you?
I think it's important to engage your spouse in finances if you're married, and to have be compatible with your goals and to talk about those goals and objectives. When it comes to making a plan, I think members of the military are really uniquely qualified to do just the sort of disciplined activity that it takes to get out of debt if you're in debt. That's something that you actually have a lot of training toward in other aspects of your life. Apply it to building credit, building savings, and paring down debt, just as you do other things. Be competitive about it, set goals, revisit those, and hold yourself to them. One of the things that FINRA supports is military saves, and one of the things that people do in the savings realm is simply state, I am going to save, and here's how much, and they basically hold themselves accountable. Do the same with your debt. Make it something that you will just not like yourself if you don't do, and you will do it. The other, I think, element that I might want to mention before I forget is that FINRA also, through the foundation and its saveandinvest.org website, has a worksheet, a budget planner, and a number of other resources that can help you visualize, by putting those numbers on paper, not just what your debts are, but what your expenses are.
If you're hearing about MilCents the first time, or if you know of a military family who might benefit from MilCents, please, we encourage you to share this video with them. It's going to be recorded so that you can easily share it. You can easily go back for a refresher if there's anything that you might have missed during this Google Hangout. And then please encourage your friends to participate in the program. It's not too late to join, and people can go backwards and catch up if they might have missed a few weeks prior. But really appreciate everyone joining us tonight, and a really big thanks to our panelists tonight. You guys were fantastic and really shared some great insights and resources. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all on push-ups.